So all this talk about practicing mindfulness, being in the moment, and savoring your positive experiences leads us up to this concept of flow states. You might have heard this term before if you're an athlete or a creative. Flow, by textbook, is a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else matters at that time. The experience is so enjoyable that people will continue to do it, even at great cost, just for the sheer sake of doing it. So the intrinsic motivation, the motivation that's internal inside of you, is super strong here. I like to describe flow. It's a state of optimal performance. So when you're in flow, you're functioning at your best as an individual. But I like to think of it as every single cell in your body is totally fixated on that one activity. So when Csikszentmihalyi says that nothing else matters, you're not thinking about what's for dinner or why Ben didn't text you back or that professor that yelled at you in class. You're not thinking about any of that. You are completely in the moment, absorbed by the activity that you are doing. This can be a mental activity or a physical activity. So there's 8 characteristics of flow. And at the end of this, after we talk this out, you will likely be able to identify experiences in the past that you were in a flow if you haven't already. The first characteristic is that complete concentration on the task. So again, you're not ruminating or thinking about something that happened in the past or that might happen in the future. You are in the present moment in that activity. There's clarity of goals, and you have immediate feedback and reward. For example, I like to color, and coloring gets me into flow. So I could have a piece of paper on a table and set out to color one section or maybe even to finish the whole page. That's a clear goal that I've made for myself, and I get immediate feedback on that goal because I can see the page fill in with color as I do it. So that keeps you engaged in the task, having that immediate feedback. Distortion of time. So when you're in flow, time either speeds up or slows down. You might be working on a paper for school or playing sports or writing, playing a musical instrument, and you start that activity, you pick up your trumpet, let's say, and then 2.5 hours pass by and you put down your trumpet and you wonder where all that time went. You were likely in a state of flow. The experience is intrinsically rewarding, meaning that it's coming from you. You're doing that for no other reason other than the fact that you want to. A caveat here is you can get into flow by doing schoolwork, studying, reading, writing, what have you. So while at first you might not want to do that activity, the motivation would be extrinsic, like your professor telling you to get that done or that deadline for the assignment. That motivation can turn intrinsic once you start the activity because you're wanting to get it done, or you want to do it in the first place because it's going to better your grade or help you learn that thing. So again, intrinsic meaning coming from inside. You want to do that just because you enjoy it. There's a sense of effortlessness and ease here. We're going to get into this idea for the 6th characteristic. This is really important in that there's a fine line between how challenging the task is for you and your skill level, which results with that effortlessness and ease. So looking at this chart here, so to start in this bottom corner of boredom, if your skill and confidence level is really high and the challenge or the task is really not that difficult, for instance, me coloring my 5-year-old niece's coloring book, I'm not likely to get into flow because it's not challenging enough for me. It's kind of boring. So if I'm not fully engaged and I'm finding it boring, those thoughts that we have are likely to creep in, which would snap me out of flow. Likewise, if I'm doing an activity, say coloring, and it's just the page is really overwhelming and I don't have that control of my colored pencil and I'm unable to do that coloring sheet well, then I'm also likely to snap out of flow because I'm having these thoughts of, this is really difficult, I'm not prepared for this is really hard, I can't do this, and you snap out of flow that way because those thoughts creep in on the opposite end of the spectrum. So there's this flow channel here that is really important to kind of cultivate, and that you are wavering with, yeah, you have control over the task, it's effortlessness, there's effortlessness there, it's easy for you to do, but at the same time, it's just challenging enough where it's keeping you engaged to the point where this is all that matters at that point. 7, your actions and your awareness are merged, so you lose self-conscious rumination. I touched on this a little bit before, but to explicitly say that the action or the activity that you're doing and your awareness, meaning your thoughts and your consciousness, are merged. They're together. They are one thing. So your thoughts and your consciousness only focusing on and care about the action that you're doing at that time, which means that self-conscious rumination, those thoughts over your test or that cute boy or whatever it is, those are gone. Those other thoughts and feelings are not creeping in. The only thing that matters is that your actions and your awareness are one and that activity at hand. And again, with the balance of challenge and skill, you have a feeling of mastery or control over the task, or else you might slip out of flow into that anxiety or panic-stricken state. Next, we are going to talk about why flow is good for us and the benefits of it, and also how to slip into flow states easier.